It is the technology show where we translate geek into regular speak. I am in Apple this week and I'm not alone. Sure, my name's Brett Levy. I'm the host. And as per the title of today's show, we will be talking about WWDC 2023. I've actually called this, I've called this show Fanboys Unite. And there's a reason for that, because I have a friend, a colleague, someone that I actually respect in the industry who tells it as it is. Mr. Alex from actually, you've just changed your title on LinkedIn. I was going to say
yes,
ITY.
I'm now at techadvice.life, which is my own website. And in fact, I have the videos of the Apple keynote at my site, because if you try and find them on the youtube.com/Apple, like the WWDC is not in the video section, it's in a separate section. And in any case, techadvice.life.
Look how good that is. I've even done my research and I put it up, and that is actually the website, right? So techadvice.life is the TLD. So if anyone listening to the show, techadvice.life. Alex, good job, mate. I went there and had a look when I saw on your LinkedIn change. You've got everything, like the number of categories you've got there. I don't think you've left anything out. Maybe Japanese toilets.
Yeah, I've left certain things out. I mean, at the moment, the site is obviously only a couple of months old, and so it's very it's wide, but it's not very deep. And look, I've got thousands, tens of thousands of articles that I've written over nearly 20 years at ity.com. So it'll take me some time to fill it up. Well, I have linked to some of the old videos and things, but otherwise, I'm just trying to start something new and go independent.
Good on you. And I am definitely going to be following you. Right, so we have called today the WWDC 2023, the Fanboys Unite show.
Yes.
Wow, that was a mouthpiece. Hey, Peter. So basically, for anyone that hasn't watched or listened to the show now, well, I don't know where they've been, but I have to actually just start off with a comment that you and I had on SMS yesterday that went along the following lines of, hey, mate, I know it's short notice, but any chance you want to join me on tomorrow's show? And your response was, I was wondering when you were going to contact me. So I was wondering this and letting you sleep in, because I'm pretty sure you got up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock our time.
Actually, I'll be honest. I wanted to get up at 3, but the thing is, I knew it was going to be huge. And I just thought, you know what? I mean, I just want to sleep. I'm going to get up at, 7 o'clock or whatever and just watch it then. And that's what I did. It really didn't make any difference. I didn't have to get it up straight away for ITY like I did in the past. And so, this is one of the rare occasions that I wasn't up at, 2:30 ready for the 3 o'clock. And, I was probably better off for it because I'd had some sleep and, I wasn't magically transported to Cupertino like you were. And so I just took my time and enjoyed it. And, as I've always said, the keynotes, Apple's keynotes are like a sci-fi movie that's going to come true in a few months, not in 400 years. And and straight away I went afterwards, after I finished the keynote, I went to Twitter and people are saying, does it do this? Does it do that? How long is the battery life? How does it show a picture of your face? This is the Vision Pro. How does it show your face to other people on a FaceTime call? And it's like, guys, all this was in the keynote. And some people said back to me, well, we've got lives, we haven't got time. And it's like, you guys will happily watch some 2-hour movie rated 4.5 on IMDb on Prime or Netflix because you want some sci-fi or romance fix.
Doesn't end.
And you're telling me you in the hundreds of thousands of hours of life you have left, you can't spare 2 hours to watch the keynote and get the information from the source. You don't have to worry about my interpretation or some random guy on Twitter's interpretation. Make your own interpretation and watch the keynote. And if you can't do that, 10, 20-minute cut-down versions. Even Apple had a video called 17 Things from WWDC's keynote in about 1.5 minutes. And then they have this fabulous 9-minute and 12-second video that gives you encapsulates Vision Pro. But again, there's like a 40 or 50-minute deeper dive in the keynote, which is absolutely worth watching. And we'll talk about what the Vision Pro.
I've said it doesn't matter if it's even just Apple, Samsung, Oppo, any of these people that put on Google, the Google I/O. If you use Gmail in your daily life, go and watch it. It's 2 hours. It shows you stuff, that it probably answers questions so that when the new device comes out, or when the new operating system comes out, you're actually across it anyway. What I'd want to do today is I want to try and stay within the order of the. Have you got them? Are you running the beta?
Well, that's the developer beta. One of the things, actually, I know you just said you wanted to stay in the order.
Let's stay in the order.
Yeah, but one of the cool things is that Apple said that it was going to remove the ability for people to get the sort of the pirate developer profiles, which apparently it did. And I noticed from about 16.4 or so on the iPhone, or 16.3, that all of a sudden, if you had been getting the developer profile, whether you were paying the $99 or you'd gotten one of the profiles and just installed it on your device, then what you could do is you could choose between the standard version, the iOS 16.5 or 6 beta version, or as of yesterday, you could download the iPhone iOS 17 developer beta. Now, some people might say, well, hang on, if you were already part of that program before, does that preclude me who's never been on it? And it's like, no. I read online at 9to5Mac and other places, you can just go to the Apple developer website, probably just developer.apple.com, but I mean, a Google search will find it for you. Then you can sign in as a developer, but when it comes time to paying the $99, you just don't pay. But you've already registered yourself as a developer, and you get everything that a developer gets except the ability to publish your apps to the App Store and have them flagged. So if you have a spare device, that's a spare device. You could
let's put that warning out there, right? Don't
develop
it. We'll see. Device.
Yeah, look, there are people. I always follow iOS beta on Reddit, and you can go to iOS to just type iOS 17 on Twitter, and you can see plenty of people just totally ignore that and have installed the beta on their the developer beta on their iPhone, on their Apple Watch, on their iPads, on their Macs. But honestly, yes, as Brett was just saying, it's not a good idea. Do it on a separate device. And one of the things I noticed in the last couple of developer betas was that the first developer beta was pretty good. And then the second one came out and there were more problems. I'm probably going to give in around the second public beta on my main device. I normally put one of the betas on my main device, but that's a public beta down the track. So I've put it on one of these, and this is the iPhone 13, and that there is
cool.
The standby, the standby display, which only comes up when you, and, you can swipe through the different widgets there, and this one you can swipe through these widgets as well. I mean, at the moment, this is not an always-on iPhone; it's a 13, but just turning it into that nightstand, and it goes deep. It goes like a dark red if you watch the keynote at nighttime. And it also harkens to what Apple might do if they ever do launch a HomePod with a screen per the Amazon Alexa shows or the Google Nest.
Well, let's go into I don't remember the order off by heart, but let's start off where they did. And I think the first thing was the new
Max.
The MacBook Air.
Pro 15. Yeah. So look, I've got a MacBook Pro 13-inch 2022. And from what I could see, the MacBook Air, I've got a MacBook Air 2022 with M2 chip. The MacBook Air 15-inch, it's actually 15.3 inches. It's pretty much just the MacBook Air 13.3 inch with 2 extra inches of diagonal screen size. That looks like it's the only change. I love my MacBook Air 13.3 inch with the M2 chip. I still have the M1 version here. This is the M1 version. And, if you're just an everyday user, the M1 version is insanely good. You don't need the M2 version. But one of the things Apple did yesterday, and people say, oh, it's so expensive, everything's so expensive. Well, Apple actually dropped the price of the MacBook Air M2 in the US from $11.99 to $10.99 US dollars. And in Australia, from $18.99 to $17.99. Now, that's only for the 8 gig version with 256 gig of SSD. And if you're a power user like me, you'll want to upgrade it. But if you're an everyday user, then that is perfectly fine. And so prices do come down.
Yeah, and if you want cloud, then your 256 is fine, as long as you're connected.
Yeah.
But
and you can buy a 1 terabyte SSD for like $150.
Well, it's the first time I've actually watched a keynote and I thought to myself, my next MacBook actually might be an Air and not a Pro. It was like in metric, I think it was a 1 kg weight. It was about 3.3 ounces, which is about a kg. 18-hour battery,
Ounces or
and
pounds?
it was like minimum, like that's using it, you know. It was an incredible device.
Look, I have to say, on the battery life is always counted as wireless web browsing with the screen at 50% brightness, and you're not doing like you're watching video or you're just surfing the web. I noticed that if I use the Camtasia video editing software, or if I'm using Microsoft Office, or if I'm using Chrome, for example, and I have a lot of things open, even though they will sort of cut themselves, lower their usage in the background. If you're using apps that are not Apple's apps, then the battery does go down faster. But that said, the battery life is still enormously huge. And I don't have it with me, but I have one of those Signet, battery packs that's about the size of an iPhone, 27,000 milliamp hours. And I carry that with me everywhere, especially if I know I'm going to be doing heavy usage.
I carry one of those pretty much wherever I go as well.
And the convenience of having USB-C charging at 60. I mean, and your iMac, your MacBook Air the Air version is only 30 watts, so you don't even need a super duper 60 watt.
Well, I've actually been carrying a portable charger that does a 45 watts, a little one, not the big brick, because of the USB-C, and it makes a big difference. I see Mark's listening to the show. How's it, but so for me, one of the highlights of the show, 15-inch MacBook Air, because it needed that. It was a positioning that it needed. The Air was always traditionally the 11 and the 13, and then it was just the 13, and then the MacBook became a 12. There was a bit of a funny numbering sequence, but I really, as I said, I actually sat there and I thought, looking at the specs compared to the entry-level M1 Pro from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, it hand down smashes it. And the fact that it has 2 USB ports plus the MagSafe, so you're not losing a port, because you used to always lose a port with a MacBook Air. Now you don't.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, if you bought a USB-C dongle, you always had a pass-through. I mean, unless you bought a very basic one, so you could always
dongle, right? But
but you just leave it connected. You just leave it connected to your power, because if you do want USB-A or HDMI or a network, you're going to have to carry that anyway. I mean, I do have USB-C and with a USB-A memory sticks, but yeah, the 15-inch is perfect, and there's no fan, so you never have that annoying noise when your Windows computer decides it wants to do updates. I was using a Windows computer for my mum, watching me do the Sydney PC user group yesterday, and I had it plugged in to power, had it plugged into a USB-C adapter, which had HDMI plugged into the TV. And because it's a Microsoft laptop, the Surface laptop, I mean, it's using an i5 processor, I think a Core 11 or something. But like every Windows device, I mean, the fan is wearing away madly, and that's so annoying. I have not had to put up with that noise ever since I got the MacBook Air M1, and then the M2 is the same. And the reason to get the Pros, and I've done video editing, I've done all sorts of complicated stuff on my Macs, I've run VMs. The reason to get the Pros, because I know if
you sort of cut you off for a second, who doesn't carry a bag with dongles, cables, battery bags? True story. But
well, I mean, if you're a serious user, you do. But by the same token, you can just take your MacBook Air with you, and some AirPods, and not have to take your power cables anymore, and you've got a day. I mean, it really depends what you're doing, but you've got a day. But the MacBook Air 13 and 15 is thin. The 14-inch and the 16-inch are noticeably thicker, and they're a bit heavier, and they actually have ports. You've got the actual HDMI. You've got more of the USB.
Pro though, right? That is what a pro user needs, an HDMI, or they need a Thunderbolt for their
and the fan is probably in like 3 or 4 years time. That's when you'll probably hear it spin up more, because it is trying to run 2025 or 2026 programs on a 2021 or 2022 Mac. But even the Pros, you have to really push it hard to make the fan spin, and you just can't push an Air that much, or otherwise it'll just get hotter. But once you stop doing whatever you're doing,
time, it's right. I need a lap warmer as well. I'm just conscious of time, so I do want to move on. What came after that? Was that the Apple TV?
There was the Mac. No, it was the Mac Studio and the Mac Pro. So the Mac Studio and the Mac Pro now come with the M2 Max and M2 Ultra, M2 Pro, and then with the Mac Pro, you can now get the M2 Ultra, which really goes ballistic. And it was over $50,000 for a maxed out 2019 Intel powered Mac Pro. With these versions, I was reading that it's less than half of that for a maxed out version. Now,
man, 3 years.
Previously, apparently the Mac M2 chip that's used in the Mac Pro has the power of 7 afterburner cards, which was, I think, a $3,000 add-on. And also, there's one other difference. The Intel version of the Mac Pro could have 1.5 terabytes of memory, whereas the the M2 Ultra is maxed out at 192 gigabytes. But that is memory on the actual SoC, on the chip. And Mac's M2 or M1 series Macs use memory far more efficiently. And obviously that limitation will be broken with an M3 or an M4 if you really need that much memory.
Well, it was brilliant. I'm not in Pro, right? So I'd never buy a Studio. I'd never buy a Pro, but I know people that are in the industry, and I'm sure that, and the fact that you could actually set it as a rack space as well for the 6 PCI cards. So they really put some thought into that device.
Yeah, look, the previous Mac Pro had Thunderbolt ports, had PCI. I think it was also rack mountable, and they were showing in the keynote how Lucasfilm and lots of other organizations are using those Mac Pros, and the advancements in speed for rendering and everything else was fantastic. So if you've got an older device and you've been waiting for a reason to upgrade, now's a great time.
There we go. Then it was the TV.
Then it was config. Well, no. After that, it was iOS 17, iPad OS 17, Mac OS 17, the home stuff, which was HomePod and tvOS, and also watchOS 10. Right, all of those things have advancements.
So we're going to talk about software for a little bit now. Now, I think for the listeners and the viewers of today's show, that is what WWDC is actually about. It's about software. The fact that Apple's generous and gives us some nice, cool toys, I think that's just more for the fact that they're showing us they're actually doing something. But a lot of people, I remember this clearly last year when I did the show, a lot of the comments that came through was like, where's the new iPad? Where's the new iPhone? Yes, September, October. Yeah. That's the consumer part of Apple. But you got to remember something, that without WWDC and without getting all of these developers from all over the world engaged and to see behind the curtain, we don't get the cool apps. We don't get the cool stuff, because this is where they get to find out about it. So, some companies are hardware, some companies are software. Apple's always been both. And it's important that, people realize that. We did get some cool hardware. We've just spoken about it, and we'll finish off with some cool hardware. But the iOS announcements are always now, and this gives them time to build and get it ready for when the new phone comes out. It doesn't just happen, and you've already shown us some of the features. So let's start with iOS 17. I love iOS 16. Okay, I think that there was a lot of innovation and thought went into 16 from 15. There was really nice stuff, but it looks like they've done it again in a period of 1 year. They've actually really set back so the things for me that stood out, and then you can tell me yours, because I'm pretty sure ours will be very different, because I look at the consumer side, right? The one that I absolutely loved was the tap to share card, but I think I have to take
name
a step
drop.
back.
Name drop.
Correct. Yeah. Name drop. So when you now create a card for yourself, so you've always had a card. Your card appears at the top of contacts, but now you can put in a really cool picture using some of the features of iOS 17, which you can take us through, Alex. You can make it look like something really cool, an avatar, whatever it is. But then just by holding your two phones together, like AirDrop works for sending files, this just shares. Now, what Greg said, or Craig.
Yeah, Craig. Yeah, Craig. Craig was what they were always saying.
So what Craig said,
I was in my mind, I was going, Craig, it's Craig.
I know, it's Craig. What Craig said, and here's a prediction for 20 whatever. He's the next CEO of Apple. But anyway, so what Craig said is,
well, he does call himself Craig.
You hand your phone, like you hand your phone to someone when you want to swap details, right? Which could be a little bit gross, right? Or you have to listen to them reading out. So Name Drop just shares that card. You both see it on the screen.
Yeah.
They're using what the phone already has in it, which is fantastic. Yeah. So I love that. I love the stickers that could be placed anywhere. So you can actually take a sticker. So for those of you that don't know what stickers are or how to extract a photo, in fact, please answer this question for me. On iOS 16, you can put your finger down on a focused point of a photo. It highlights it, deep etches it, and it makes it movable.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? Can you only move it in the picture itself? You
No,
can't take it out.
no. Once you've tapped and held on it, it comes up and it says copy. So you can
Right.
copy it, and then you could already
Okay.
put that
Then you could put it
into
somewhere.
iMessage or into a document. You could paste that like any other image. It just basically cut out the outline of you or your dog or a plant, and it did it quite accurately. But now you can actually have it as a reaction sticker, so like a thumbs up or an emoji, and that can be animated as well. So you can have somebody doing some dance, and you can put that as a reaction. I mean, that is just a little cool thing. I think most people are probably not going to use it. But it's there, and it's a demonstration of the iOS smarts. But
I'm going
I mean,
to turn this comment off that's just come through from Anthony. Hey, Anthony, that's about vision. We'll get to at the end, and he's made some nice comments I'll bring up. So the animated stickers, I like that because I think, again, they're looking at a younger market. When kids on TikTok all day long and they're sending IMs to everyone and they're messaging, like that's just very cool. Like you can share it up in that. You've already let the cat out of the bag. The bedside mode on iOS 17, that's just brilliant. I have been woken up so many times by my phone flashing with something. Now, I've learned about bedtime mode and focus, but most people don't know about these things, right? They're not techies. So they buy the phone, they turn it into airplane mode, and they go to bed. And the next minute, 3 in the morning, 5,000 gazillion million nits hits you in the face. So, and if you're side sleeping, you're looking at your phone back. I've had a few of those moments. So, bedside mode is fantastic. The fact that it's still functional as well. So it's there. It's not just off.
And as I was saying before, it goes into this red mode, which doesn't affect your eyesight at night time. It's not blaring these white.
The best for last
lights.
for me, and I'm sure there's other features I probably liked at that moment in time, but I mean, I didn't write them down or think about them. And as you know, I never script my shows. I like to go in fresh and have a conversation. But the absolute best for me was the fact that an audio message comes through with a text transcription below it, because I'm sitting in a meeting and I've got a lot of people that use audio, and I use audio too, and it makes sense, right? You're running around, you're driving, you can send a quick audio message, but it comes through with a quick transcription below, so that if you're sitting there and this audio message comes through and it says, hey dad, I'm in trouble, or I really need to speak to you now, shit's gone down, whatever, you can excuse yourself and go and do it. But I sit there and I look at that audio message and I'm going, is this just someone sending me a message to say, hey, come for a beer afterwards? Or is this someone actually...
Is this something important?
Urgently. So that was really clever thinking. And then coupled with that was the tracking to let you know that I'm home based on my ETA. So I got a kid. He runs around at night by himself. He catches the bus, the train, whatever. I know how long it's going to take to get home, but he's not going to message me. I'm just his dad, Now the phone will send a message saying, Kate should have been home. Like, now I can phone. So those type of things, that comes off the back of their SOS thinking, and they loved it. Now, I know I've left out lots. What have I left out?
Sure. Well, one of the cool things that actually Pixel has had for a while is that when someone rings you, you can actually let it go to voicemail. You can see a live transcription of what they're saying. And if you wish to jump in and answer the call, you can. Now, I had this on a Nokia, 17 or 18 years ago. I had an app that was an onboard answering machine. And as somebody called, the answering machine, not the network, answered the call, and I could listen in. And if I wanted to, I could hit a button. So it's sad that it's taken, more than 15 years for that to appear on iPhone, but we finally got it, and it's a native thing. There's also the journaling app, which will probably come in 17.1 or 17.2, which will sort of create collections of interesting things you did on different days, and I guess allow you to do journaling. There's autofill, two-factor authentication codes from email. You've got crossfade now in Apple Music, which is not working in the Developer One beta. There's an updated Playing Now user interface. You can share add tags with other people. You've got live wallpapers on the lock screen. Dark mode wallpapers have returned. You can change settings from Spotlight.
There are some. Screen for a second, because I'm not finding the home screen as functional as an Android phone when it comes to the widgets and that. And I didn't really see a sign of that like Craig mentioned widgets, and he was quite positive about widgets. Have you seen that on the developer? Are we getting more than just 2?
Look, yeah, that was one thing I wanted to know. Look, I've got to say I haven't checked.
Because I mean, 2 widgets. Let's be honest.
It's not enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going right now to have a look and see.
Beautiful widgets and widget tools.
Yeah. Look, looking at this, I'm not seeing that you can have more than 2.
Doesn't mean that it's not going to happen.
But, yeah. So, I mean, it would make sense for there to be more. And this is where the bedside mode has widgets so you can scroll through. I think some of those things will lead
through. Me think about when you said widget. I was like, hold on a second. I got 2. I mean, Android's had widgets for 10 years. They've had it from day dot. There was a BlackBerry thing. So
look, I definitely agree that they could have done more in that regard. But Apple normally takes its time. I mean, really, if you think about it, there's like 4 widgets there because it's showing that that you can. You've got the time and date. You've got the time, and then you've got these ones down here, and it doesn't look like I can add more. So there's not more than 2 widgets as such as yet, but they could easily do it if they wanted to.
I was expecting the dynamic island to do more, like drop down to become a big widget area. Maybe a developer can do that because the dynamic island is nice, but it doesn't. You know what I mean? It's nice, but it could do more. I mean, it's designed.
Apple probably has more things up its sleeve to announce at its September event when all the new iPhones will come with a dynamic island. Apple also has 17.1, 17.2, 17.3. I mean, they can launch new stuff whenever they want. They don't have to wait for a 0.0 update. But anyway, you've got there's a new photo editing UI. You can insert contacts into any app. Apple didn't mention AI, and it also didn't mention metaverse. If you watched one of the Google presentations, there's actually videos of Sundar Pichai saying AI, 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 AI. He said AI like 73,000 times. I don't think Apple said it once, but they didn't mention ChatGPT or any GPT as such, but they did talk about how Siri, when you're doing autocorrection and when you're doing dictation and when you're typing stuff, it has a transformer, which is basically a ChatGPT sort of thing, which is helping you to predict and dramatically improve according to.
I was going to say it has improved. The predictive text on an iPhone at the moment. What did Craig say? Ducking. It was terrible.
So they're saying if you want to say the other word, it will stop autocorrecting you.
Yeah, it will stop autocorrecting.
We probably won't hear Apple say AI in terms of a ChatGPT like improvement to Siri, maybe until next year or the year after. But they're working on it. They've advertised. They do
reference their neural engine though when it comes to home, and that is neural engines. It is AI. That is what it is.
Their machine learning.
So they've got it. They've got a neural engine that they've been. And I love the fact that they dropped the word "hey," that you could just go Siri.
Yeah. Although when I was using the regular AirPods. I've got the AirPods 3 and I've got the AirPods Pro 2. And it did tell me on this particular phone that when I had the AirPods 3 in, it said, like a little notification popped up saying you still need to say, "Hey Siri" with those. But with the AirPods Pro 2, you will get the ability to just say Siri. And in fact, on the AirPods Pro 2, a very cool thing was demonstrated. You've got the transparency mode and you've got the noise cancellation.
Yep. Oh, we lost you, Alex. And that's the technology.
And I think we're back. Yeah. So what happened was, what happened was the transparency mode in AirPods Pro 2 launched last year will automatically sort of dim or deafen the sounds of jackhammers and other loud noises as you were walking around if you had transparency mode on. Obviously, if you had noise cancellation on, it was already being cancelled. But now they have a new adaptive mode, which blends the best of noise cancellation and transparency. So if you've got noise cancellation on and you start speaking to somebody, it'll automatically turn transparency mode on. And basically, it's a clever way. It's using AI, obviously, to do all that. And that's really cool. So there was that. And there's private browsing with Face ID. So if you go into private browsing, you can set it up so that you need to look at it before it'll expose all your private tabs to somebody else. New spotlight animations.
For Pornhub, given how Australia is one of the top countries that goes to Pornhub. So there we go. Private browsing all sorted for you.
Yeah, interactive widgets. So the widgets now interactive. You can now pause and play on music and do other cool things. And also the assistive accessibility things. You can. I haven't tried it yet, but you can speak a whole bunch of sentences into your phone, and then it can speak in your voice for you. So this is going to be great for deep fakers who are trying to terrorize people with fake voices of somebody else. You could program it to do that, but it's great for people who know that they're going to get dementia or are preparing, because they might have a stroke, and you can pre-program your voice, and then you can get your voice back. So look, iPad OS had many of the same things. Mac OS Sonoma has many of these things too.
Yeah,
Watch OS 10 is a redesign.
The one thing I wasn't quite following on Sonoma, when he talks about moving into the sidebar, so just for the people that didn't watch the show, you can open up an app and then move it into it, like almost down the side of the screen, as if it was a second taskbar.
No, I don't remember seeing that. What he was saying, from what I remember, is that Mac OS has had widgets now for 3 or 4 years, but the widgets live in the sidebar. So what you can now do is you can now drag those widgets onto the desktop. And I was thinking to myself, well, Windows Vista had gadgets, as they called it, which was desktop widgets. And it struck me how many companies launch things, like Samsung with its VR headset, like Google with its Dream Glass VR headset, like Google with the ability to squeeze your phone on the side to bring up Google Assistant, or the Face ID using the LiDAR sort of, radar stuff they had in Pixel 4. I mean, they abandoned so many things. It really annoys me. So now the desktop of your Mac can have the widgets living on the desktop. And when you had other apps open, you weren't just on the desktop, those widgets would fade. So they weren't overwhelming you. And if you changed background pictures, or if things changed, the widgets would change color automatically to suit. So it's just a little aesthetic thing, but it's nice to have the widgets. I mean, if you can have widgets on your home screen, on your iPad and your iPhone, why the heck couldn't you have them on the desktop of the Mac? Well, now you can.
He seemed to show it almost though as if you were interacting with the widget. So let's say it's a web page that you'd now create into a widget. It would live in your bottom taskbar, and if you pulled it up, you would interact with it, and you could just move it to the side, and it would stay in its widget row. I didn't really follow.
I think that was a web app. That was just a web app. You could now have web apps.
Is that what that was?
See, which can live. You can have, you can have web apps that live in your dock. So it's basically either an app that somebody has made that lives on a website, or I presume you can turn any web page into a web app.
Thing, right?
And what it does is it cuts out all
of my iPhone as a launcher. So now what you're saying is I could actually keep it there. Okay. Yeah, it was, and there was just one part. I think he was too busy transporting himself using time machines to place to place. I lost that one.
Sure.
And then the handoff has got a lot better on Sonoma. The way it hands off between the devices, what do they call it? Universal Connect, universal
control. I don't remember them showing that. What they were saying was that your AirPods would be more intelligently able to switch between different devices faster.
Well, you were showing how you came in for your message, you went straight into your, like, even if you're browsing straight into Safari. I've always had issues where it was always a bit glitchy. It seemed to be a lot more seamless now in the demo that he did, because I like that.
If they've improved it so much, the better. I mean, for me, I'm using multiple iPhones and multiple devices.
Yeah.
And for me, it's annoying that I'm listening to radio on one phone and I just happen to go to another phone and interact with Twitter or something, and suddenly the audio switched across. I actually turn that feature off because it annoys me. I'd much rather there was a button I could tap or something. And I mean, there was a button you could tap to put it back, but it's just too annoying. So if they can make that more seamless and allow me to sort of keep the focus on one device over another, that will be good. And that's why it's good to play with the public betas and because most of us are not developers, and send your feedback, because there's a chance they can fix it. But we've only got 5 minutes to go, right?
We've got a little bit more time. Got about 15 odd minutes. So quickly, watchOS and tvOS.
Well, they redesigned a lot of the watch faces and a lot of the apps. You can now have on your front screen. You can now have widgets.
Snoopy. So the fact that you
Snoopy was there. Snoopy, I noticed that Bob Iger, as part of the Vision Pro interface, I zoomed in on my Mac and to have a look, and he's got the Mickey Mouse watch face.
Does he?
Yeah, well, you would expect him to. but all the little animations for Snoopy looked fantastic. But you've now got these widgets and smart stacks and things on the front screen, and you can use the crown to go through them. So,
which makes sense. Like the crown.
WatchOS 10 has had a big update because it hasn't changed a great deal in the nearly 10 years.
The cycling community got a lot of updates through WatchOS.
They did, yeah. I mean, just improved. I'm not really a huge cyclist.
I didn't really follow it, so I was like.
But if they, look, the biggest thing for the cyclists, I mean, the biggest problem of using your Apple Watch when you're running or walking or exercising is you've got to kind of go like that and look at it, and you're cycling. It's like it's a pain. So the big improvement for cyclists was that you could now have your phone, and you could, you'll have to buy some attachment to stick it on your handlebars, but in big numbers, in big iPhone size, screen, you could see the heartbeat and all the different stats you want to see.
Gym, right? When you use the health app as a whole, so you go to the treadmill and you put your phone there and you're listening to music, whatever. As you say, you've got to do this, and if you're doing this, now my Siri's going. If you're doing this, I had the same thing. You could just like veer off if you're going at a decent speed.
Yeah. So it's good to have.
I mean, time on vision. So the last thing, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but the last thing which goes to iOS 17 was the fact that you can now take your phone and you could put it on a little stand. I have a stand like that. You've got one clearly in the background that's magnetic as well. Yeah, and you could put it by your Apple TV and use the camera of your phone. Yeah, I've got one here as well from Belkin.
Yeah.
I've got my little ones floating around here as well.
Yeah.
We could do the this was one from you've got the white, I've got the black. So come to the dark side. But I love the fact that they've now taken the camera, let it connect to Apple TV. You can now have a Zoom call or a family call or whatever, FaceTime, obviously not Zoom, where your phone's camera is being used, and now you're sitting there on the big TV. It's those little things like that.
It's
that
always
make
little
us
things.
Fanboys. That it's when someone sat down and they thought, oh, there's a camera we're not using. Let's use it this way. Oh, we've got AirDrop. Let's make name drop. It's those little things that I look for in the keynotes. That's what I love.
Yeah. So I always like to say, Apple puts more effort into its just its product videos alone and its names than other companies put into their entire product lines. And with names like AirDrop or Name Drop, I always like to think those things are a bit of a mic drop, and sort of the rest of the industry thinks, well, why the heck didn't we think of that? And it's like, yeah, why didn't you? Even the dynamic island was such a clever idea. I've read people going, oh, I'm sick of it, I'm bored of it. And it's like, I'm not bored of it. I think it's bloody fantastic. Every time I've, book an Uber or something, at the top of my screen there, show me Uber, and it's got how many minutes left. I don't have to open a different app. It's just there. And, the best that I've seen the Android guys do is put a little ring around the cutout camera to show me that I have to look at the screen. And so they had the idea of doing something with that years ago, but never expanded it. And even things like HoloLens, Microsoft, we're going to talk about Vision Pro, but HoloLens, if you watch the very first keynote video from HoloLens from a guy called Alex Kipman, who actually left or was kicked out of Microsoft allegedly because he was harassing people. Well, you can read more for yourself. But, his first video was a very Vision Pro-esque sort of unveil. Everywhere you looked, you could have screens that you could resize. You could have a virtual dog next to you.
I remember that.
But the very first HoloLens, you had an A4 size sheet of paper that you looked through.
Yeah.
So it was promoted as this thing that was everywhere, but you could only see this much. Now, nowhere in any of the hands-on of the Vision Pro has anybody said that there is a limiting field of view. Yep, and that is revolutionary.
Well, there's a segue into the Apple Vision Pro. So before we go, I'm going to just one of the listeners put a comment up saying, they were writing about this headset for years. We all have. We've all been followers, and looking forward to seeing AR games, yes, and good movies. But it's now kind of here, which that's my feeling. And then the other one was the big issue is having to move into an Apple ecosystem. If you're a Windows gamer, and if you're an Android smartphone user, now Apple has never played nicely with anyone else, and they don't really care, right? So the simple answer to that is sorry. I know that sounds terrible. Well, that is what it is. They're not going.
The other answer the other answer to that is that the industry, I mean, I've got a t-shirt from like the early 2000s before the iPhone came along, and it's a light blue t-shirt. A friend went to Apple's store in Cupertino and bought it for me, and it said some words along the line of, you know, now that Apple has done something, it's time for the photocopiers in Redmond to fire up, and that's the truth. You know, the VR headsets, telephones, MP3 players. I mean, you know, Windows-like operating systems. The recent history, or the history of the past 30 or 40 years, is because I mean, I had an Apple II clone before I had an Apple II, a real Apple II. Apple does something, and the rest of the industry finally knows what to copy. Now, when Samsung launched the S23, on stage it had one of the top guys from Google. I can't remember if it was Sundar Pichai, but it had the top guy from Qualcomm, and they were there on stage saying, hey, yeah, we're going to bring out a headset with Samsung and Google and Qualcomm. And then when Google had its I.O. a couple of months ago, they said, oh, yeah, we're going to have a headset with Qualcomm and with Samsung. But they didn't show anything. They didn't, you know, so they've obviously been waiting to see what Apple's going to do. I mean, I'm sure they've been working in the background. They've had the MetaQuest Pro and other headsets. And look, I put on my MetaQuest 2 yesterday. You know, it is pretty cool. You look around, there's no field of view issues. But the Vision Pro is not a headset alone. It's not just AR alone. It's or VR alone. It's a blend of VR and AR, and they're calling it a spatial computer. And they're saying that this is a new type of computer. And personally, I'm inclined to believe them.
So my views, I've been waiting for, like everyone else as well, and I was expecting to actually see a bit more AR-centric pair of glasses that would then take the data. So let's just use the example of the runner and the cyclist, right? You're running. If you've got a pair of AR glasses on, you're still seeing everything you need to, but the little notification pops here, and then you go, hey, Siri, don't Siri. Like, hey, you know, hey, person, read that message. So pure AR, which Apple could have got right, and Tim has been an advocate of AR versus VR for years. Looking at the Vision Pro, it's got more VR ingredients than it does AR, because you're closed, you're immersed, you're using cameras to see reality. You're not seeing reality with overlays, okay? So these are my negatives. First of all, the elephant in the room is the price. At $3,500 US, which is about $5,000 Aussie. As much as I want one or don't want, I would never, ever spend that kind of money on that headset, because I know that version 2 is going to be half the price and probably double the power. So it's that innovator, you're the first to own it, and I get that. I still own my first iPad, and I went to New York to get it. But the point is, that's rich for my blood. I mean, there's a lot that I could do with $5,000. The second thing, the whole thing is glass and cameras. There is just glass and cameras everywhere. Now, if you drop that, or you know, they're showing you sitting in a home environment, sitting on your couch. If that falls this far and it hits a solid tile floor, it's going to crack. And at $5,000, I'm going to crack. So
at $5,000, you're going to want Apple Care. You're going to want Apple Care. Look, most people are going to buy this on a plan. You know, I mean, sure, there are plenty of wealthy people who just drop $5,000, and in fact, it's $5,299 or thereabouts, and that doesn't include GST, because US prices don't include GST. So probably going to cost closer to $6,000. I mean, look, cool things about it. If you wear glasses and not contacts, but you wear glasses, you can get some Zeiss lenses that can snap on inside magnetically. It's got the spatial audio that pops out of these pods. You can still wear AirPods with it. When you're looking
on HTC's new Vive, that comes with the lenses already with the corrections inside it. You don't have to pay for them. So, because I wear glasses for close. So again, you know, yes, it's nice, but okay.
Look, they were trying to make it as thin as possible, and people who put it on say, look, it's not the lightest thing. And if the battery was actually in the headset, it would have been too heavy.
It'd be heavier.
But a lot of the people that I've read who've had the luxury of going to Apple and having a hands-on, for about half an hour, some people said, look, they get very car sick or motion sick normally, but they experienced none of that with the headset. They took it off that actually it wasn't heavy, it wasn't steaming up. I mean, the fact it's got no fan in there. One of the things that I want to see is how much it fogs up. One of the problems I had with the original Samsung Oculus, headset from 2016 was that the damn thing
They
would
did
fog up. You
address
actually had to.
the
Well,
part that goes between the headpiece and that was that fibrous film, so the heat expansion would be there. So I think they have addressed that, and look, they've had time to learn as well from all the others.
Yeah, look, nobody mentioned it, and the thing is, that's a very important thing. There's no fans inside because they've got these holes are all around sort of the top and the bottom to allow it to be fanless and quiet. When you watch the presentation, the 9-minute presentation, or the sort of 40-50-minute second half of the keynote, you can see that people can just have one screen. They can have multiple screens. They can have iPhone, iPad apps, Safari, their Mac desktop. They can spread them out however they like. Can move things, with their hands. There's no controllers. It's all done with pinches and pokes and motions. You can have a virtual keyboard. You can use a regular keyboard and a trackpad. So
I was going to say, just for the listeners, you can add peripherals because not everyone's going to be that excited about
you can add a
finger
keyboard
control.
And a mouse.
But
I'm sure you can use a regular mouse as well if you want. Yeah. So to me, it really is the most advanced looking, seamless, head-worn computer that does things in 3D. You can watch TV shows and movies in 3D. They were showing Avatar, and obviously on a 2D screen, you can't see the 3D effects. But people who watched it said, wow, this is the most immersive 3D I've ever seen. It's true 4K on little postage stamp size screens where they talked about having 64 pixels, micro OLED pixels.
The same size pixel as an iPhone pixel.
Regular OLED pixel.
Yeah.
And so you see none of the pixels. It's very smooth. You've also got it's also a 3D camera and 3D video recorder. So you tap a button and you can make these clips. Now they were square, presumably because as you're moving your head around, it's got to maintain that image. It's like a stabilization sort of thing. I'm sure future versions will have widescreen. And the little crown on the top that you could spin, you could make it so that you could blacken out the rest of the world, or it could be open. And if somebody comes next to you, when you're sitting on the couch, it's automatically going to, I suppose there's a way of because we wouldn't want that on a plane, but there's a way of that person being visible all of a sudden, so nobody can sneak up on you and hassle you while you're wearing the headset. And it's showing you the other person your eyes. It's taking a picture of us. It's showing them.
That was a bit freaky.
And so
it made me think of like a someone's coming out of space, like an alien. They also. The one thing that they addressed and answered that was going through my mind is that if you're in a video call, how do they see you? But the fact that it maps your face and creates the persona of you.
Digital avatar.
That was very cool. I really liked it. And you can use that avatar in other aspects as well, so that was nice. By the way, we left out one very, very important fact before we got into Vision Pro, is the fact that Death Stranding is available on Mac at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Now I've been, I'm a gamer.
Director's cut.
The director's cut, which is the PlayStation version. But why developers will not put their freaking games for Mac, I don't know. The architecture, the hardware smashes PC every day of the week, but we cannot play. So they had, I don't know his first name, Kimojo. Sorry, the guy that developed the game. I know that's so disrespectful to the Japanese culture, so I do apologize. But they actually had him on stage talking about it and the fact that he's always been a Mac fan and that his studio plans to launch more games as well. So why I'm bringing that up, why it was important, is that if games can port into this device. So what I'm saying now is that as a game developer, because they're already developing VR and AR games, so they already have teams that are working in spatial and depth design that are not PC games or flat, normal 2D designs. Then the Vision Pro could become a very, very interesting product because now for Apple people, you can game with an Apple environment. And
look, that was one of the parts of the demo. We saw somebody playing a basketball game,
but they were playing arcade.
With the controller.
They were playing the Apple games, not these big blockbuster games.
I mean, as part of that Death Stranding presentation, Apple made it clear that they've got all of these new capabilities to much more easily translate games across from their PC or console platforms onto the Mac. And the Mac, does have Metal 3. It's got plenty of things. There's a new game mode for Macs that will optimize it. So look, the era, and the funny thing is, people, the Macs, not a gaming device, blah 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 blah. iPhones and iPads have had console quality games now for years.
Yeah.
And long before you had the Nintendo Switch, I suppose you had the Nintendo DS and you had the Game & Watch and all that going back.
Those are 30 frames per second refresh rates on the Switch, or maybe 60 on the OLED. It's nothing.
There's tons of great games.
Yeah,
tons of great games on the Mac. And the Macs, I mean, Apple has been organizing things. They had their AR stuff back with the iPhone 11. They've been working on widgets, and like the AirPods Max had the crown and had elements of the design that we saw in the Vision Pro. The Vision Pro, they said, has had 5,000 patents. They've had to invent stuff to make this thing come true.
That's amazing. So
it is pretty incredible.
Would you spend 6,000 Australian dollars buying a Vision Pro?
Look,
when it comes out Q1 24.
I mean, I don't have spare $6,000, but if I can get it on add it to my phone plan, through Telstra, because it'll come with 5G, then sure. I mean, Apple already with my Mac, what I'm doing is I'm buying that through the Latitude credit line capability. So I'm just logging into my Gmail here with my little security key on this other Mac. But I'll just pay it off, $145 a month for $3,249 Mac. I mean, I got the 1 terabyte model. I should have gotten the 2 terabyte model. And if you split the $6,000 over 24 months, well, then it becomes a lot more affordable. But the thing is, most people are not going to do that. They're going to wait until they get a second generation or a third generation model that's thinner and lighter, and nobody wants to be buying it, and then suddenly it's the out-of-date version. So this is for early adopters. Like Apple explained, they're going to have developer kits, and they're going to have the ability for developers to come to Cupertino, to London, to Munich, Singapore, and Tokyo to be able to see their apps working on on the headset. And then they're only launching it to begin with in the US. I mean, it might not come to Australia until late 2024 or 2025, and by then it may already be Vision Pro 2. So Apple knows that it's not going to sell squillions of them, but I still think it's going to be the biggest hit, and the rest of the industry now knows what to copy.
All right, so conscious of time, let's just do a quick scale. On a scale of 0 to 10, now to give you a reference point and to give the listeners a reference point, right? The iPhone, in my opinion, on a scale of 0 to 10 is a 9. It's probably even higher, but nothing in the world is perfect, right? The iPad is probably about a 7, 6.5, 7, because the phone does it, blah, blah, blah. The Apple Watch, I would have put up at an 8, maybe even close to a 9 as well, because of what it was. What do you give the Vision Pro on a scale of 10?
Well, just from what I've seen so far, I'd have to give it a 9, like the iPhone. Right? I'd have to give it a 9. I think this is a seminal moment as the iPhone was in 2007. I mean, look, a lot of people are saying, oh, no one's ever going to buy it, or I'm going to buy a 70-inch TV and 7 VR headsets and all this and all that. But this is a standalone, independent computing device that you can control with your voice, with gestures, and just by looking at things, And it runs, virtually every iPhone and iPad app. They'll have heaps of Mac apps ported across them, and it's got the M2 inside, for goodness sakes. It's got the same processor as your Mac. So there's no reason. I mean, already, if you put the Mac down in front, you can pop the Mac screen up, but you can just run Mac apps on it. Apple just has to allow that, and they will. Need to be
tethered. We left that out in the discussion. It runs as its own device.
Yeah, so 2 hours on the tethered battery, or all day if you plug it into your Mac.
What I mean, tethered to a machine. Most
that's right. It's
VR
independent.
Needs to be linked via Wi-Fi or cable to a PC. And a substantial PC, not just a PC. You can't just put it in your $400 Windows machine. So from that point of view, I have to give Apple kudos there that this is a standalone device that computes as a Mac would compute or a phone would compute. I don't know if I can go as high as a 9, because unfortunately things like all glass, that concerns me. We've all dropped a phone. We've all had that moment when you bend down and pick it up and you look at that shattered screen, and it's just like,
Look, already, A1, you'll have Apple Care. You'll be crazy if you don't get it. 2, already yesterday, a third-party accessories maker announced 5 different headband accessories.
And it's weight that adds to it, and that, in its native form. Like I use my phone without covers because I like the feel. The designer designed it for me to use it that way.
Well, I never not have a cover on my phone. I always have a cover.
So
some people make a slim plastic cover that just clips on, won't add much weight at all, and then if it drops, that'll break rather than the glass. Apple will think of such things as well.
Oh wait, I'm not at home. Sorry, I'm in Apple in Cupertino, but no, I'm sitting still. So but I always have a screen protector on. So for that reason, I can't. But I also, because of what it is, and because we haven't seen anything like it, and again, I suppose I have to revisit this with you when we physically touch it, right? Next year sometime. I probably can only put it at an 8. So if I compare the iPhone and its innovation to the Spatial Computing Vision Pro.
When the iPhone first came out, when the iPhone first came out, when the iPhone first came out, it was not as good as a Nokia N95 in its capabilities. It couldn't copy and paste. It couldn't record videos. I mean, the original iPhone's biggest claim to fame, it didn't have third-party apps. The original iPhone's biggest claim to fame was that it could do the pinch and zoom. And I remember in November of 2007, somebody had already in September 11 had jailbroken the iPhone. I did it so that I could use a Telstra SIM in my American iPhone, and in October, November, already there was some guy who was making an app a day for 30 days. By day 30 or by day 27, he was like, "Oh, I wish I didn't promise an app a day for 30 days," but he did it. I had ants running across the screen. There was a bobblehead of Steve Jobs' head that moved left and right. There were heaps of cool things, and not long thereafter, Apple announced the App Store. It took them a couple of years to do copy and paste. Took them a couple of years to do better video, but the Vision Pro of today, it's like having it's almost like having a Model T Ford compared to one of today's Teslas. I mean, people said to me, 8.1. 8.1. People say to me, is this should you buy version 1? Because I obviously never buy version 1 of anything. But this is not version. I mean, it's version 1 they've launched to the public, but they've probably had several versions they've worked on over the past few years. And by the time it actually launches to the public, it's going to be even more refined than what we have now. So it's very impressive. I can't wait to try one. I mean, I had all the hands-on reviews. None of them have said things like, that you only had an A4 size field of vision, like with a HoloLens.
That's the big thing, though, right? That's the difference. As you said early on in the show, if Apple says they're going to do something, they're going to do it. I'm really looking at time, so we do need to ring off before the actual system shuts me out. But thank you. It's always good catching up, and I'm glad you accepted my text message and last-minute invite. Congrats on TechAdvice.life.
A lot of work to do there. And I'm looking forward. If you want to hear more about this, I'm going to be on with Chris Smith on TNTRadio.live at 3:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I've got a weekly segment on this global radio network, so TNTRadio.live in 32 minutes.
Awesome. Well, I'll let you get ready for that. Get your radio face on. Okay. So, thanks very much. And it's always good to have you on the show. And that takes us to the end of the show. So until next time, keep your screens clean and your knobs shiny.